This is Local Edition. I'm Jason Dole, and back in August of 1897, the first scientific expedition to Antarctica set sail from Antwerp. 19 young men from 6 countries were on board, including American physician and Sullivan County native Frederick Cook. And to celebrate the 125th anniversary of this expedition, the Frederick Cook Society is showing a collection of drawings and photographs from a scientist who was on that journey. Collection is coming all the way from Romania. For more, Radio Catskill's Patricio Robayo spoke to the folks who are making this all happen. Let's meet them now.
Carol Smith. I am the executive director of the Frederick Cook Society, and I curated the exhibition, and I have very wonderful friends who are coming to give a talk.
I'm Sarah Pickman. I am an independent historian who focuses on histories of exploration and the early parts of the outdoor gear industry in the 19th and early 20th centuries. And I first started visiting the Frederick Cook Society about 2 years ago. I've done some volunteer work there in their polar collections, and I'm very excited to be taking part in this event.
And I am Juana Marcu. I am a scientist by training, a biologist, and I am a co-founder of a foundation that we constituted in the name of Emil Rakovica, who was one of the crew members on Belgica, and a very close friend of Frederick Cook. And I am super grateful to Carol for putting this exhibit together. And I think just as the crew members on Belgica became friends, they didn't know each other at the beginning and became friends. Hopefully we too become friends as we track on their steps.
Yeah, and it's great that everyone has come together. This is really an international effort, really, that's coming to Sullivan County. I guess the first question is, I guess we'll start with you, Carol. How did this exhibition come about? I guess you knew the 125th anniversary was coming up, and how did you, Sarah, and Juana all come together and decide to have this exhibition in Hurleyville?
Yes, they're doing the same exhibition in Belgium, and I keep track of the museums over there. When I heard they were doing it, I said, okay, we'd like to do it here in America. Dr. Cook was the only American on the ship, and he was also a profound and prolific photographer. So we have put together hundreds of images from the ship that have never really been seen before and have never been put together. The museum in Hurleyville was enormous, with tremendous space and light for all these photos. I met Juana when she called the museum 2 years ago. She was setting up a conference of people connected to the Belgica, and I participated. And Sarah came up with a group of volunteers from New York City and the metropolitan area and have been working with me on our collection. We have a lot of interesting historical artifacts in the collection, and I'm learning what to do with them. So that's the backstory.
Yeah, so this expedition set sail on August 16th in 1897 and went to the Antarctica. 19 young men from 6 nations, including, like we said, the Sullivan County's Frederick Cook. They ventured into the frozen unknown and came back on November 5th, 1899. With a lot of scientific data. So I guess the question, is, to you, Dr. Pickman, what type of data were they going there to collect, and what type of data did they bring back?
So this is a time period around the turn of the 20th century when exploration is really a huge deal in Europe and North America, and Antarctica is seen as one of the last unexplored places on Earth. There's not a whole lot that's known about Antarctica. Of course, there's no indigenous population in Antarctica, so outsiders really had no idea what the interior of the continent was like, hadn't even fully mapped the coastline of the continent, weren't sure what kinds of creatures or ocean life were there, what kinds of rocks. There's all kinds of wild speculation that there might be diamonds or gold or oil under the surface. No one really had a firm grasp of what they would find. And one of the significant things about the Belgica expedition is that they ended up unintentionally spending the winter in Antarctica. They were the first ever expedition to do that. And so they collected a whole year's worth of scientific data from all different scientific disciplines. So meteorology, lots of weather readings, but also incredible specimens that were collected out of the oceanic life. They identified the only true fully land animal from Antarctica, which is actually a tiny little insect. But they also studied penguins and the seals and the marine mammals there. Fred Cook made incredible observations about what happens to the human body in these conditions of extreme darkness, incredible psychological pressure of living with a group of 18 other people in these close quarters for more than a year. There was an incredible range of data across really most scientific disciplines that existed at the time that was collected over the course of a year in Antarctica, which really had no other precedent.
You think by now, I think we're so privileged now to have information on our fingertips. And to think about, there was a time that these things weren't really unknown. And they say Antarctica was such an unknown place and not just Google things and everything like that. But it's amazing that I guess also not only that the bravery of folks going out to really to the unknown conditions, what to expect there. So I said this exhibition was set up already at the foundation. Dr. Merkel, if you could talk about what type of items were on the display in the exhibition in Belgium?
The Belgium exhibit has actually two parts, and they were trying to collect a lot of the manuscripts of the people who were on the ship. Even from Romania, there's a manuscript that basically people were logging every day their life there. And you have to understand how important these documents are, because in fact, we have to think back. We're so trained now to think about communication and how easy you pick up a phone and talk across the ocean, right? They had nothing. They didn't actually, in fact, when they came back from the trip, the radio communication was just inventing. They were thinking how cool it would have been to have that, right? So part of it is related to the manuscript, and part of it is related to the legacy. So this was an expedition sponsored initially. The commander was Belgian. It was sponsored by the Belgian government, and a lot of fundraising that they had been doing. And also the background of it was that they were really supported scientifically by the Royal Society of Geography from Belgium. And that was a body, an organization that was very strong in science at the time. There was data from the International Congress of Geography the year prior that said we need to go there. In fact, this was a huge incentive for the expedition that it would have the science background that's supported by the scientific community. And something else that I think the Belgium exhibit will highlight is the enormous amount of work that came after the expedition. So Sarah mentioned all the samples that they collected, all the observations that they made. It took more than 40 years to catalog everything, and more than 80 scientists around the world. So I think the Belgium expedition will show this, the manuscripts, the work after, and also a lot of the equipment that they had, the letters between the members of the crew that lasted for, as I said, their friendship lasted a long time. But also the equipment that they were making on Belgica, because in fact it's kind of like, the early days of 3D printing. Basically, they were making things for themselves. They were in the unknown. They had to make things up. You will see in pictures, I think even in the Cook Society, pictures of the sledge made by Dr. Cook and Roald Amundsen. So they were really inventors. And I think the Belgium expedition is going to cover also all these aspects of the different parts of their personalities. They were scientists and explorers and inventors, and they had a lot on their plate for being so young. So it was a huge honor for Belgium to be part of this, to be part of a nation of explorers. And Jean de Gerlache was honoring his family in this way. So it's very important. It's a very important event for Belgium. And I'm not sure how much they are going to highlight, but the fact that Belgium is very important in this way because they put the flag and they decided Antarctica is always going to be a continent that belongs to everybody. Even though people plant flags, and that is true to this day, politically, geographically, if you want, that is a continent of the world. And that is huge. Probably part of this is going to be highlighted in the Belgian expedition. That is really a place of international collaboration with no borders.
Right. We've talked a lot about on this program, and those who live in Sullivan County know I've heard the name Frederick Cook. The County Museum does a great job of promoting his work and the history of his exploration. But if you want to continue just a little bit, tell us more about Emil, the SJ scientist who collected some of his data. He was Romanian, right? And how did he get onto this expedition?
Mm-hmm. He was Romanian, but he was trained in France. So his father sent him to do law school in Paris. At the time, the French community, and this is actually very much related to the Belgica itself and why some of the content got lost and it's only revived right now. A lot of the science was happening at the time from the Francophone world. Emil was sent by his father to study law, and he ended up the degree in law, but then he picked up on biology. And it turns out he picked up on biology because he had a fantastic school teacher who inspired in him the passion for biology. And he became so good, he published a doctorate thesis around some worms. And when Adrien de Gerlache wanted to assemble. So that's very special about this. The one that just explores, he actually intentionally assembled a crew of scientists. When he was looking for a biologist, Rakovica was very much known in the field and recommended. So that's how he ended up. And also they had to pay their own ways. So they didn't ask. Many of the scientists just went for the exploration per se. That's how much they were passionate, and they did a lot on their own without being paid. And that was very important because it was very difficult to raise funds. So that's how Rakovica got there.
The other thing about the exhibition, we have some beautiful artifacts from the trip. We have the actual American flag that was on the ship, and each man from their country brought a flag, and this flag is absolutely beautiful. And we have the sled that was taken on the ship that was built right here in Sullivan County. Dr. Culp and his brother, Theodore, were woodworkers and craftsmen, and they spent years developing the finest, fastest, latest sleds known to man. So we have one, and it's extraordinary. And that's part of the exhibit.
That's amazing. They're going to take the history there. But Juana, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think it would be nice for us, and I hope to talk with Sarah and Carol. We want to talk about the exhibition. Of course, this is the centerpiece, but we want to take these things forward as well. So we have a foundation, they have a society. There's so many young people who are interested in this, but we want to bring this back to young people. Think about how young these people were. And we think now we know everything on Earth. We don't. There's so many unknown places still. We want to highlight the heroes, but the way to think, at least for the foundation, at least for me, is, of course, who was Rakovica, who was Cook, but who's the next one? Who's the next Frederick Cook? Who's the next Rakovica? Who's the next Desjardins, right? There's so much more to explore. And what were the conditions? Because it seemed to be the right people at the right time. What are the conditions that we can help create? Perhaps through these exhibits, perhaps through renewal of this expedition, interested in this expedition. How can we can create more opportunities for young people to want to explore, to be able to explore, to know where to go, to probe, to do research? So I think a big part of the mission for the Rakovica Foundation, at least, is to bring this as an example, of success, of endurance, of resilience, of a legacy. But I would hope that every kid in the world who comes to the exhibit, or every parent, can think about that way as a child. My child is the next hero. My child is the next explorer. My child is the next whatever navigator. I think that's the way we would like to think about us.
Thank you so much for joining me on the program. The exhibition is open. The reception is happening on June 21st from 4 to 6, and 6 o'clock starts the panel. In Liberty, I'm Patricio Robayo for Radio Catskill.